Hello everyone, it's Stepney 2009 here, and 40 years ago today, Thomas and Gordon, the first episode of a new series called Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, came out. In this video, I want to tell you how Thomas has impacted my life. I have loved Thomas and Friends for longer than I can remember. The first series that I remember watching when it first came out was Series 16. I also watched a lot of the earlier Nitrogen seasons as well as the hit era, which I am very nostalgic for. At that point in time, classic Thomas wasn't shown on TV that much, so I didn't discover it until later. When I was 3 years old, my parents took me to Drayton Manor for the very first time to see the Thomasland bit, and I thought it was the best thing ever, a whole theme park dedicated to Thomas. By the time I started school, everyone who loved Thomas in preschool had grown out of it except me. Everyone knew this and most people were fine with it, but of course some people bullied me for it. When I was 5, I went to the cinema for the very first time to see Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure, and I absolutely loved it. It's still one of my favourites. Around this time I went to Drayton Manor for the second time. When I was 6 I discovered YouTube. The first Thomas channel I watched was Enterprising Engine 93. I absolutely loved those outdoor crash videos. It was thanks to YouTube that I discovered Classic Thomas. The only episodes I really saw were Toad Stands By, Rusty and the Boulder, Grandpa and Sleeping Beauty. They instantly became new favourites and they still remain in my top 10 to this day. Around this time The Great Race came out and I found out that the Flying Scotsman was real and I dreamed of seeing the actual engine. By the time I was 7 I was still being bullied for liking Thomas, so I decided to pretend that I'd grown out of Thomas and only my family and closest friends knew that I still loved it. Why wouldn't I? This was around the time that Series 20 came out. When I was 8 I was diagnosed with autism. At the time I didn't know what this was or what the appeal of Thomas had with the autism community. I thought that I was just growing up slower than everyone else. At this time the Brenner era had ended and the Brother began. I didn't dislike Brother at all, I actually kind of liked it, but now I don't hate it, but it's not my favourite. After around Series 23 I started to become a lot more interested in the classic series and the CGI. When Series 24 came out I still watched it, but I was a lot more interested in the classic series. Around this time was when the news came out that Thomas and Friends had been cancelled and that a new 2D animated reboot would replace it. It was around this time I had started to become a lot more interested with the history of Thomas and Friends. It was then that I decided that I wanted to read the Railway series. I had 3 books at this point, Gordon the Big Engine, Mountain Engines and Oliver the Western Engine, but I wanted to read all of them. It was around this time that my main source of watching Model Thomas HD Classics, had been terminated. Not long before I started watching Thomas Fan 261 and was inspired with his DVD collection, I started to collect Thomas DVDs too. Thanks to Thomas, I had started to become really interested in real steam engines and have since become a railway enthusiast. Around this time I discovered the Bluebell Railway. After I finished primary school in 2021, my dad rewarded me with the box set of all 26 of the 2002 reprints of the Reverend Wilbur Tawdry's books. I decided to read them over the summer holidays that year, and have done so every summer holiday since. It was during this first read of the series that I discovered the Talyllyn Railway. It was also around this time where I started watching The Unlucky Tug, where I discovered my interest for the history of Sodor. It was on this summer holidays where my dad took me and my family to the Bluebell Railway for the first time. I absolutely love the railway, and it was amazing being able to meet the actual Stepney. We've come back every year since. Later that year, Thomas and Friends All Engines Go was released. In 2022 it was announced that the Flying Scotsman would be visiting the Bluebell Railway. My dad booked tickets and the engine broke a piston. Great. So after the Flying Scotsman was repaired, we finally saw the engine in 2023 as part of the centenary celebrations, where we even paid to go through the tender and onto the footplate. The same year I created my own YouTube channel. I decided that I wanted to name it after Stepney. Around this time I discovered the impact of the autism community that Thomas had, which gave some explanations as to why I still love Thomas so much. I'm nearly 15 years old and my love for Thomas is going absolutely nowhere. I've also become an enthusiast for real railways. This year alone I've been to the Bluebell Railway for the 5th time, the National Railway Museum in York, the Talyllyn Railway, the Romney Hythe and Dymchurch Railway, Drayton Manor for the 3rd time, the Watercress Railway, and later this week I'll be going to the Bluebell Railway for the 6th time. There is a lot I can thank the Reverend Wilbur Tawdry for. If it weren't for his creation and for Britt Allcroft and David Mitten's amazing adaptation of it, then I probably wouldn't be interested in trains at all. In the future I want to make more videos on this channel and I would love to go to an Audrey Extravaganza event. And when I'm a bit older I'd love to volunteer at the Bluebell Railway and the Talyllyn Railway. I want to thank all of you for taking your time to watch my videos. Whenever someone writes a nice comment it always makes my day. I'll see you in the next video and goodbye for now.